Welcome back to Rise and Shine. This is Ability Connection Colorado's podcast. These are the new graphics that Mark McNett here at Ability Connection Colorado created for us. And Judy Ham is with us, the CEO of Ability Connection Colorado. You're looking good, Judy. How are things going?
This is a mask.
Is that something I can say at work that you look good? Anyway, you do. You're always sparkling. You bring optimism and results. And with us today, let me set the scene if I can, Ephraim. It is Wine in the Pines. It is a packed Keystone resort. What do you call it? Event center, right? People are there. We've been auctioning. We've had success the night before there was an auction. We had success. I've run into a wall as the auctioneer trying to get $2,000 for a bottle of wine. I'm trying everything. I'm calling out people and complimenting them, and then maybe some friendly insults, whatever I could do to create just enough of a riot to get the money necessary for the bottle of wine. And up strolls this dapper gentleman who says, "Do you mind if I take the mic for a little bit?"
Ephraim is going to sell you the bottle of wine.
All right, so this could be the beer speaking or it could be the bourbon, but I told him that I bet I could get another $2,000 for this bottle of wine. And how I'm going to do that is I'm going to tell you about my son, Isaac. Isaac is 19 years old. He has autism and some other disabilities.
And it's you, Ephraim, you get money for the bottle of wine. You share this incredible story. You move the entire room.
Yeah.
Is that something you normally do? Were you outside of your body that night?
No, a little bit outside of the body. I mean, first of all, I'm not normally dressed in a tux at a charity event, so it's kind of unusual circumstances. And of course, I'm sure there was no shortage of wine flowing at the event. And my daughter was with me too, and she was encouraging me to do something to help you. So
there was that
backdrop. But plus, it was just a natural thing for me because, as you both know, I have a deep connection to the population that you serve. And it was important to me, too, that you fetched a good value for that bottle of wine.
How did you end up at Wine in the Pines?
So I'm not sure how I don't recall how I was first introduced to Wine in the Pines and Ability Connection, but maybe it was through your marketing and a decision by my wife and I just to join one of the Wine at the Pine events a few years ago.
Yeah.
And we loved it. And we at that event, we actually bid and won the package for the 5 events throughout the year, which just deepened our connection to Ability Connection and all the charitable events that you throw. And so I've done the 9-ball in downtown Denver. I've done the clay shoot, done the paddle tennis event, etc.
Yeah.
And enjoyed every one of them.
Well, I remember when you were there. Yeah, you stepped up for that as well, and we were so glad to meet you. And Ephraim, you've always been so generous and kind, and I think it's important if you're okay with it. I love what you're doing. I think it's Fort Collins, the house.
Yeah, I could share that as well. So,
would you please? I think that's magnificent.
Yeah, so I know one of the questions Jared said you'd have for me is what do I do for a living, and I actually have 3 things that I do for a living currently. And I'll briefly hit the first 2, and then I'll go more in depth on the home one. So I'm a lawyer. I've been in corporate law for most of my career, 30 years now. I stepped out of the business world about 2-3 years ago and opened up my own solo practice. And so I have my own solo law practice. I do a variety of legal work for a variety of clients, mostly business related, but I do support families that have students that have special needs and are struggling with education challenges with their school districts. So that's one sort of a not quite pro bono, but means-based.
We're getting back to that. We're getting back to that. Not to interrupt you, but I just want people to know.
Happy to get back.
Just piqued a lot of interest right there.
All right. Happy to get. My second business is a consulting business. I work for this firm called Lean Focus. That's their logo, and we support our business clients to implement lean business systems and just take out waste in their processes and run more efficiently, which is really fun work, and I enjoy that quite a bit. But the thing I've been focusing the most on lately is a business that is now named. It's called Little Star, and it's a Colorado provider agency, and we are authorized to provide host home services, family caregiver services, supported community connection, and a few other services. And this business started because when our own son, Isaac, who I hope you'll get to meet here towards the end of the interview, when he came on to one of the Colorado waivers at age 18, we were required to sign up with an agency so that they could oversee us and our care for Isaac. And my wife and I were really unimpressed with what that agency did for the share of money that it was taking from the Medicaid benefits. And my wife said, why don't we just do this ourselves? And I said, that's a good idea. Let's look into it. And it's a pretty involved process to get certified, but we decided to do it anyway. And within 6 months to a year, we became certified, and we started doing our own Medicaid billing and oversight for Isaac. And then fast forward a little bit, we had a home in Fort Collins that we had to leave because we moved in connection with my last corporate job from the Fort Collins area to be closer to Denver. And we needed to do something with that house. We did not want to sell it. It's a very special house. And Donna had this idea, why don't we turn it into a host home? We had no idea if we could. We had no idea if we could find caregivers. We had no idea if there was a need for service members, people with disabilities on one of the waivers. But we found these amazing caregivers. And if you have time, I'll tell you about how we found them. That was pretty interesting. And they moved into the home, understanding that if we didn't find clients, they'd have to move out pretty soon. But within a week after they moved in, we got this call from Foothills Gateway, which is the case management agency up in Larimer County, for an emergency placement of a young man, 31 at the time, who was essentially being asked to leave the home that he was in because Adult Protective Services had to step in because of the manner in which he was being cared for, or I should say not being cared for.
Right.
And that resulted in an opportunity for us to care for him. And when he first came to us, these are just the stark facts. He was malnourished. He was incontinent. He was extremely aggressive. He would eat anything you could imagine. He'd eat dirt off the ground. He'd grab drinks out of strangers' hands on the street. He'd go through trash cans to get food because he was starving. But within a month or two, he got all his weight back on. His aggression decreased dramatically, and he was cared for really appropriately. And that was the first of many of our members besides Isaac that we've had the privilege to serve. But just seeing it with that one person, if that's all we had accomplished with the business, it would have been a success.
Yes.
But now we've expanded. Now we serve 10 different residents, and it's awesome. And every one of them this is the thing. I go back to, I watched one of your interviews with Chris Higgins, and when his son comes on, it just lights up my face because it's like what they say about people with autism. You've met one person with autism, you've met one person with autism. Every person with disabilities is another person. And just like all the rest of us, they're so unique and so special. And that's my favorite part of this job, running this provider agency, is meeting the new families and meeting their loved ones, because they're just awesome people.
So you for lack of a better term, you field of dreamed this thing. If you build it, they will come.
Exactly. I do want to share how we met the caregivers, because this was pretty fascinating.
I'm going to bring Faith on here right as just for this break there. Hey, Faith.
Hi, Faith.
We have Ephraim on with us. He's about to tell us how he found the caregivers for the home that they started in Fort Collins. And this is a really a poignant piece of information. Is a lot of people would like to know how to find the right people.
Well, in this case, I think it took a little bit of luck and serendipity, because this is the toughest part of this business, is finding people that are in it for the right reasons, because a paycheck is not the right reason. Right? This is not a lucrative business. It's not meant to make us rich. It's meant to serve the people that we serve, and nothing more. So we had this wonderful house. We had moved out a couple years earlier. We had leased it to a typical family from Florida. 2 years passed, and we weren't agreeing on terms, and Donna and I didn't really want them to stay anyway, so we let the house go vacant, and which is when Donna got this idea, let's try to turn it into a host home. So we advertised it on Zillow, and the advertisement said, you could live in this home, and it's a beautiful home. You could live in this home rent-free if you're willing to care for one or two members on the DD waiver. Wow. That's how we advertised it. And we got a call from a CSU professor who, he's not on the DD waiver, but he's definitely receiving some sort of Colorado benefits because he's a quadriplegic. But he doesn't have intellectual disabilities. He's an amazing professor. And he said he was potentially interested in the home for himself. The home is accessible because the way the owners built it actually has an elevator, because at the time one of the owners was in a hospital bed. So that's why they built it that way. And so he looked at the house, but then he decided it wasn't for him because it's just not close enough to town. And he wanted to be everything immediately accessible for him. But he said, one of my caregivers may be interested in the opportunity that you're presenting. And it was this lady named Jenny White. and her husband, John. They came from Kansas. They owned a coffee store in Kansas and kind of moved out here on a whim with no gainful employment and some caregiving experience for this CSU professor. And we met them and knew right away that they were perfect. And here's the funny part about the gentleman that moved into the house, our first resident, because he has very significant needs. He has autism. And like I said, when we first met him, he was very aggressive and difficult. And the dad was out of town. He was back in Kansas dealing with the coffee shop. And Jenny was there with two of her kids, both young kids. One was in middle school at the time, one was in high school. And Sam, the resident, came in and toured the house. And when I saw Sam, I knew that he would be a handful, but there was also so much about him that reminded me of Isaac. And again, I hope you get to meet Isaac here in a few minutes. But like the way he walked into the house and looked at the rooms and touched the light switches and moved his arms and stuff, he just really resonated with me. And I knew we could care for him. But it was the caregiver's decision. Like, I'm not going to force anybody on the caregivers. They have to be comfortable. And they met Sam, and we spent not that long with him, 15, 30 minutes with him. And then I went to the kitchen out of earshot with Jenny and her two kids. And I said, well, what do you think? I said, this will not be easy. I guarantee you that. And it's totally your choice. What do you think? And they all three, without hesitation, said, we want to do it. And it just, I'm going to cry now. It literally brought tears to my eyes that they were.
You've come to the right podcast. If you watch the Chris Higgins one, Faith and I are still recovering.
That this family was willing to care for this young man in these circumstances with limited experience and the big risk that they, of the unknowns, and they took it on and they've done so well. And to be sure, it's not been without challenges, but this young man's life is fundamentally better than it was before we met him. And they're caring for some other people as well now too. So it's been really great.
Boy,
there's
that's
this thing.
Story.
There's this thing that Ephraim says on his website. There's success and then there's significance. And success is personal. This is for your immediate family. And significance, I think, is broader and more for the community. Yeah. I think you've stepped into significance here.
Well, I don't know, 10 people. I don't know, getting there.
Yeah,
definitely going beyond me and my immediate family. I mean, to me, significance would be, 100 or hundreds of people that we're serving. And I do have some ideas for that, which I'd love to float by you guys maybe. Well, I'll just do that now. So
yeah, let's do it.
This business, and this is really out there, and I'm sure I'll offend a lot of provider agencies, but in this business, most of the provider agencies, and there are some well-known ones that do have hundreds and even thousands of clients across the state and the country, they'll pay the caregivers typically 75% or 70% of what the state benefits are. And of course, and they allocate that 25 or 30% to overhead. And there is overhead. There's a lot of oversight that you have to do, and you got to pay the bills and all the back office stuff, et cetera. And you got to inspect homes and everything. My vision, though, it's kind of like the Sam Walton vision for this industry. You go to Walmart, you get good service, you get good products, but you get them at a really good price, right? Mm-hmm. And T. Rowe Price does the same thing with investors. They take a very low commission, but they provide a good service. Yeah. Costco, same kind of concept. My concept would be we run this business as leanly as possible, going back to my experience with the consulting firm, and allocate 85%, not 75, not even 80, but 85% of the revenue to the caregivers. I think we could kind of change the industry overnight, because that would be really meaningful to the families and the host home providers that we'd be serving. I don't know for sure that it's financially feasible. I do think it is, and my wife and I have been talking about potentially doing that. And if we did it and it just forced all the other agencies to do the same, that would be a victory too.
Yeah. Only anecdotally I could speak as being a caregiver. My sister was a caregiver. There was this constant turnover. You couldn't get, and this was an industry where you needed people to create relationships with those for whom they were caring. But it was hard to, because people couldn't make a living doing that. Yeah. I feel like this could help the situation.
Well, it could. I mean, I do think you can make a living at this, especially for host home providers. I mean, there are two types of people we serve generally. There are what we call the family caregivers. And like Chris Higgins and myself, we're examples of that, right? We care for our own adult children in our homes, and we're family caregivers. And the state benefit's great for that, because it enables the families to continue to provide for their adult children rather than to send them off to institutions. Not that we would ever in a million years ever consider that for our own son, but believe me, plenty of people would. And the residents that we have at the host homes are in exactly that circumstance. Then the other type of caregivers are what we call host home providers. So Jenny and John White are host home providers. It's not their own adult children that they're caring for. Those providers, I do think, can make a reasonable living at this for a couple of reasons. One, the state benefit is not insubstantial. It is based on the level of severity of the disability. So it ranges pretty dramatically. Just rough numbers, it's like $80 per day at the low end to well over $300 at the high end. $300 a day, that's significant. The other thing to keep in mind is it's actually, if you're doing it in your own home, you're caring for a person in your own home, that pay is tax-free. It's exempt from federal taxation. And so that's significant money. Caregivers absolutely can make a very good living doing this job. But my position is I don't want them doing it if it's just to make a living. I want them doing it because it generally matters to them to provide good care for the people that they're serving, which is clearly the case with the Whites. It's not been the case for all the host home providers that we've encountered.
Yeah, it has to be in their heart to do it. Do you know what your model reminds me of? And this is a throwback: rooming houses. Do you know, I lived in one when I first graduated from school, and it was wonderful. And we were all there because we needed a place to be. And, you know, I think that if we take out the stigma of being in some kind of, you know, institution, instead you're in a home where you're cared for, and there are people who care for you. And I love it, Ephraim. When you first told me about it, my concern only was, you know, will you find the caregivers? And it sounds like you did it. Of course you would.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then to successfully expand, we'd want to find more, you know, John and Jenny's for sure.
Absolutely. There are people who do that. Host homes kind of do that, but I think it's better. One of our founding parents bought a house for their daughter. They passed, but she owned the house and it was hers, and people came to live with her to take care of her. And so I've appreciated that, you know, that opportunity as well.
Yeah.
So,
Well, that's fantastic innovation. And I want to talk about your story on the website, which is a movie script. We've already contacted Adrian Brody to play you. We'll see how that works out. But here, it's amazing because you read this story, illegal-advantage.com. A lot of great content on there. The video of you and Isaac skiing is fantastic. It's really well done. But in this story, there seems to be a lot of animosity that I'm gathering between you and the school district. I think you sue them and then they sue you. Is that how the?
Yeah, I'll briefly walk you through the whole story, but yeah, absolutely. There was a ton of animosity in the early years, and then remarkably turned into a wonderful relationship. But
and that's the thing that got me is all of a sudden, paragraph 6, you're like, let's talk about pragmatism. I'm like, what? Okay, we're in some kind of biblical parable here.
I'll try to walk you through how that happened, and we're still not entirely sure how it happened. But when we came to the school district, this district, we came from California, and Isaac, our son, had a very strong IEP, was getting a very good education in California. He was in kindergarten, but it was a very good IEP. And this school district, we sent them the IEP in advance, and they made a decision before they ever met us or Isaac on the basis of that IEP that there was no way that they were going to adopt that California IEP. Come hell or high water, they were not going to adopt that IEP. And so they did everything they could behind the scenes to set up a scenario where they would not have to adopt that IEP.
Did you tell them you were third-generation Coloradan and not an actual Californian?
Absolutely. I did. We told them that my grandfather was born here in Denver and ran a cattle operation in Greeley for his entire career.
That didn't do it.
And I was born in Colorado. We had moved away from California for work, but no, it didn't do it. And then there was some kind of funny stuff happening with his education, and so we submitted an education records request. And the kind of stuff that we got from that education records request was really eye-opening. And some of that stuff's posted on my website. You can go see it. And you can also use my provider agency website is littlestar.com, and we don't have that website active yet. So littlestar.com points directly to my legal support for people with disabilities. So you can read these documents that the school turned over, and they were like, I was in litigation. I was a litigation attorney and had practiced, but at this point for 20 years, and I'd never seen documents like this. literally one of them, from the director of special education for the entire school district, was instructing her staff to delete and destroy records. And you don't have to take my word for it. Go to the website. You can actually see her email directive with your own eyes. And so that led to our lawsuit. Our initial lawsuit was under the Colorado Open Records request because even though they had turned over that stuff, we felt like they were still hiding the ball. That was the initial lawsuit. Fast forward about 2 years, and then they had submitted a request to us to run 26 different examinations on Isaac as part of his triennial evaluation. And one of those examinations was an evaluation that would require him to undergo some medical procedure. They really wanted to go to the hospital and have a doctor stick something through his nose or down his throat. I don't remember what exactly, but we said, no way are we signing this until you tell us what are these tests for, who's going to do them, and how the results are going to be used. And they refused to tell us that. And then they sued us using what are called the parental consent override provisions of the IDEA to force us to consent to these examinations. And so we defended ourselves in that lawsuit. Unlike the previous lawsuit where we used another lawyer, we defended ourselves in this lawsuit. And we were at the administrative court in Denver, and they had put their lead psychologist on the witness stand. And when it was my turn to cross-examine her, I just asked her, Dr. Tanny, is there any reason you can't tell it? Well, my wife reminded me of this just the other day, actually. My first question was, if this were your own child, wouldn't you want to know what these tests were being used for and who was going to be doing them? And she said, well, she didn't answer initially. And then the judge forced her to answer. And she said, of course I'd want to know. And then I said, is there any reason why you can't just share that information right now? Like, why do you want to do all these tests and who's going to do them and how are you going to use the results? And she said, oh, I can tell you. And then we immediately stopped the case. I said, that's all we wanted to know. So we stopped the case. We went out into the hallway or the cafeteria or wherever it was. I don't remember. And we immediately negotiated a resolution of the case. And our entire relationship with the school district changed from that moment forward. It went from this very animosity-based relationship to a truly wonderful, supportive relationship where these people just going forward just wanted to educate Isaac. And they really appreciated Isaac for who he was. And they came to have great admiration and even love for Isaac. So much so that when we had to move from Fort Collins to for work, and we shared with them that Isaac, he just completed his freshman year, that he was going to be moving to another high school, that the people that were involved in his care actually cried. That's how much they cared for him. By the time all that water was all under the bridge, and the relationship was really great at that point.
Wow.
And this came down to honest, open communication.
I think so. Like my wife's here, and she may have. What's that? Oh, not with the main people. He really wants me to point out that with the main people that were involved in his case, but not with the director of special education. She was always a problem.
Okay. But you had allies there and were able to move forward.
Yeah, and the general counsel of the school district put an arrangement in place where the head of special education had no involvement in my son's case, which was great for us.
Wow.
And so there were people like, it was Dr. Tanny and Corian Ramirez. And their names have changed through marriages, I think, since then. But these were wonderful people, and they did great work with Isaac.
That's a heck of a story, Ephraim. And I think many parents would wish they could have that ending with their stories.
Well, so then my advice there would be don't go the animosity route. Don't go the aggressive route. Go that open. It doesn't always work because, some school districts just don't want to do the right thing because it's all about the pocketbook. But if you can avoid acrimony, avoid it and be pragmatic and do your best to collaborate with the school.
Well, Judy, as you told me the other day, don't be the opposition they want you to be. Don't create that opposition, that opposing force.
That's right.
Also, let them fall in love with your children. Right, that's key too.
Boom. Yeah,
and they will.
Yeah,
they will. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I learned that personally because once I had children, my stock went through the roof with my mother-in-law, and I was like, wow, okay.
It's a great leveler, right, Jared?
It really is. Like, yeah, I can just hide in the background while they entertain her, and I've earned points, and I had no idea of all the benefits.
Yeah.
Well, if you'd like to meet Isaac, he's nearby.
Yes.
Well, and I was going to say we're going to start chanting Isaac's name because he keeps saying that he's going to join, and we'd love to.
Isaac, come here, buddy. You're gonna be on camera. He's home for spring break.
Oh, good.
He's sporting the full-on beard,
Hey, Isaac.
and you remember Donna too.
Hi,
Hi,
Donna.
Donna.
Good to see you. You are an amazing family.
Isaac, I saw a video of you and your dad skiing, and I wanted to know where you ski, and are you a black diamond guy? Are you doing the blacks?
Yeah.
Wow.
Right.
I just do green and blue. I just do these gentle slaloms down green and blue. That's it.
It's good for all of us if that's all you do.
What's your favorite ski area? Like Keystone?
Keystone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It
Yeah.
is a place. Yes. it
A
is.
Basin and Keystone.
Oh, A Basin is great. Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you going to be skiing for spring break?
Yeah.
He's got a little bit of laryngitis right now, but as soon as he gets better, we're gonna go up to the slopes. Yeah.
Good
Oh,
for
great.
you. Yeah. Now, what school are you in now, Isaac? Where are you going to school?
Jefferson County Transition Services.
JTS is the name of the program. Is the Jefferson County Transition
Okay.
Services. And what high school is that, buddy?
Dakota Ridge.
Can you tell the camera?
Dakota Ridge?
Dakota
Dakota
Ridge.
Ridge.
Oh,
Nice,
okay.
nice.
Yeah. Yeah, it is a nice school. Yeah, good deal. Yeah.
And the JTS, it's the transition
Like-
services
Like every week.
every week. It's after high school and it's before you're 21, and it's a focus on vocational readiness, and it's setting them up to come be a client of Ability Connection.
We're ready for you. Come ahead.
Well,
Yeah.
that's an impressive beard, I got to say.
Yeah, that's a good looking guy there.
I sheared myself
Ready.
recently, and that's quality facial hair.
I am.
He does, I offer to shave it daily, and he insists on keeping it, so it's his beard.
I shaved it
You
daily.
shave it daily. You
You
trim
wanna
it
trim
daily? Looking good.
Yeah.
Looking good, Isaac.
Yeah,
Yeah.
hey, it's a good mountain man in Colorado look. I fully endorse it. So if that means anything. So
I skied last weekend.
Oh, you did?
So,
How'd it go?
Do you want to tell about Special Olympics? How'd you do at Special Olympics, buddy?
it went
Yeah,
good.
not surprised. Yeah.
yeah, there is I want to do
Mom.
this a Special Olympics polar plunge in Aurora in the next couple weeks. 5K, and then you do the polar plunge.
Yeah.
I don't know if any of you have done that. I'm kind of excited.
No.
No, we're content just to do the events. The events in our clothes.
You done.
But you're not the first people to turn me down. I may just be by myself. So
I actually have a question super quick for you, Ephraim. So in the article that Jared mentioned earlier about Isaac's story, towards the beginning, you mentioned the term special needs is becoming increasingly more outdated. And we were having a conversation recently about language and terminology. So what do you suggest people use instead of special needs?
Well, a person with disabilities, or if you need to, a person with intellectual disabilities. But I've heard different things on this. Like some people would like to say that have autism. They like to say I'm autistic. They don't like to be identified as a person with autism. They like to put the autism front and center. So they like to say I'm autistic. So it really depends on the person. And I think the best approach is to ask the person how do they like to be
Right.
referred to.
Yes, I think that's a great answer. And now neurodivergent has come on as a big word, and people are trying to even understand it. So I think the person to choose.
well, before we go, I met Ephraim and your family at one of our events, Wine in the Pines. Faith, you got updates from Terry on our next event and what is happening with that with Concorda Elegance and
Oh.
the Exotic Sports Car Show.
Yeah, so Terry just asked me to ask you to register your car, become a sponsor or vendor, and get your discount tickets at www.coloradoconcours, and that ends with a silent s.org. And I'm sure, Jared, you'll drop the lovely link here.
Like I said, there'll be a link there, and it'll bounce around just to get your attention.
Faith, what's the date of that event?
That, I believe, is June 8th.
It is.
Yes.
9 to 3.
Yeah, yeah.
9 to 3 out at Arapahoe Community College in Littleton.
And it's weird, Ephraim. I'd never seen it until I emceed it last year. I can't believe how big it is. And it's just a big sunny day and a massive green outside of Arapahoe Community College, and solid. Amazing.
Lots of fun cars. Lots of fun cars. Yeah.
I'm still trying to get my 2007 Subaru Forester in the event, because I think it's the most Colorado vehicle. It'll win an award, I
A
swear.
former boss of mine has a 57 Chevy sitting in his garage, not driving at all. I'm going to try to convince him to come out to the event and maybe even take
Yeah.
his car.
It's classic cars. So we'd love it. We'd love to have you. And Isaac, do you like cars? Oh, you love this. There's some super looking cars that we get to sit in. So come join us. We'd love to have you there. Okay.
Well, thank you so much, Star family, and thank you, Faith, for making it. I know you have family in town, and Judy for the sage you
Oh my.
typically bring to all these conversations. So I greatly appreciate everyone here. Yeah.
Thank you, Jared.
And next time,
Thanks, guys, for
next
having
time
us.
we have to talk to Mom. Okay. Mom's got a story, I think. Oh, he does. He absolutely does. But I think you've got a great story too. So that'd be great.